Good morning, I'm Maddie Jansen, and this is the podcast of 17 News at Sunrise. It's everything you need to know to start your day in about 15 minutes.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
Good morning. For the first time, we're hearing that a man's death may be linked to the Ridgecrest earthquake, but it happened about 150 miles from the epicenter in Pahrump, Nevada. We'll explain.
Now, 5 days after the Independence Day quake, many Ridgecrest residents are returning home, but as far as whether that's safe is being determined by a group of volunteers. We'll explain how they're responding to the overwhelming number of requests for inspections.
A measles exposure at a local hotel. We'll tell you what health experts say that means for Bakersfield residents on this Wednesday, July 10th, 2019. Good morning. Good to have you with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Alex Fisher and Kevin Charette.
And you better be getting ready for it because the heat is coming.
Yeah, the heat is going to be really ramping up for the weekend. We're all going to see some pretty hot temperatures out of the Ridgecrest area. We'll be talking about that. The warmth is starting to really hit Kern County. We've been so lucky to stay in the 90s. Yeah. Well, they're gone. Let's talk about yesterday. It was a pretty nice day with sunny skies and temperatures into the 90s. Our high was 93 degrees. The record on yesterday was 113, and that was set back in 1905. So far from the record, nice, comfortable 93. And again, things are about to change. 67 out there right now for you under a calm wind. As we take a look at the numbers for today, we are going to climb to 82 by 11 and then mid-90s by the afternoon. So we get one more day where we're not looking at any excessive heat. As we take a look at the Tehachapi area at 55 right now. No winds to talk about for you. And as we take a look at the temperatures this afternoon, rising to the upper 70s by 11 with 80s this afternoon.
It could be the first death related to Thursday's powerful earthquake in Ridgecrest, but it's not in Ridgecrest or in Trona. It's in Pahrump, Nevada, about 150 miles from the quake's epicenter. The NYE County Sheriff's Office released this video today of the area where they found a 56-year-old man pinned underneath a Jeep. The man was last seen alive the day before the 6.4 quake that struck the morning of July 4th. Investigators believe he was working on the Jeep, which fell off its jacks when the shaking began. The man's name has not been released. No other deaths or serious injuries have been reported from the earthquakes.
We've heard a lot about the impact of the earthquakes had on the naval base at China Lake just outside Ridgecrest, but we're now getting our first look on the base, which remains closed while some 1,200 facilities undergo inspections. The Navy and USGS gave us a tour of the damaged base. Some of the worst reporters saw what was the chapel. The steeple is cracked and just about everything at the altar was destroyed.
All the statuary was broken. The cross was broken. It was a shock. It was like, whoa, this is deep.
The chapel is now red tagged. Those on the base will now have to find a new place to worship.
Meantime, in nearby Ridgecrest and Trona, people are trying to pick up the pieces and rebuild.
And 17's Vanessa Dillon spent much of this weekend on the ground in Trona talking to people about the damage and recovery efforts. She now joins us in studio this morning with the latest on recovery efforts and how the city plans to rebuild. Good morning, Vanessa.
Good morning, Alex and Maddie. While it's been a trying week for residents in Ridgecrest and Trona alike, the community's focus now lies in assessing property damage because residents have all been accounted for. The city has turned its attention to inspecting homes. A team made up of volunteers, public work employees, general contractors, building inspectors, and city engineers are guiding each resident who reports damage through the process of determining if a building inspector is needed. If so, one is dispatched to that resident. But while the team goes down a list of residents in need of inspection, many say the fear of potential aftershocks remains a concern.
I've been in 4s and 5s, but that 7.1, I thought it was the end of the game.
There's more damage here than what people see, and even if it's not catastrophic, it's hard on people. It's hard on you emotionally more than anything else.
The good news is many have been given the green light to go home. Today, there are fewer residents using the Red Cross shelter as a home away from home. On Sunday, 145 people slept there, and that number dropped to 96 by Monday night. The Red Cross shelter will remain open as long as there's a need, and later this morning, people who live in Trona and the community of Windy Acres are invited to a town hall meeting. It's happening at 10 a.m. at Trona High School. Now, leaders from San Bernardino County and state and federal agencies will discuss the recovery efforts happening in those communities. It's also an opportunity for residents to share their concerns. Maddie, Alex.
All right, Vanessa, and like we said, you spent a lot of time in the Ridgecrest area. What was kind of your biggest takeaway after spending several days there?
I would say one of the biggest things that really stood out to me was a lot of residents, thankfully, there is a fatality that's being investigated, but as far as Ridgecrest and Trona goes, there weren't any fatalities, no deaths reported, or really just minor injuries. But something that really stood out was just that pain of losing those things from homes, even though they're material items for the most part. It really did make a huge impact on a lot of residents there. They're just going through all the emotions of aftershocks as well. That's just been a fear factor in them as well that I've seen.
So as far as what they've lost, what would you say residents need most right now?
I would say a lot of them continuously told us they really need those resources, of course. So they lost a lot of food materials, a lot of water, essentially something that they really need. And just that emotional support is what I've seen. A lot of people got really emotional with me as well, spending those last several days out there with them. So something that they need is definitely just the community continuously coming together and supporting them.
Absolutely, kind of seeing what they need as they go. All right, thank you so much, Vanessa. It's 5:07 now, and the safety of the Isabella Dam has been a big concern, but so far engineers have not reported anything wrong. The Sacramento District of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers tweeted this photo yesterday. They inspected the Isabella Dam along with the Terminus Pine Flat and Success dams. Engineers say there are not any signs of distress at any of those dams.
PG&E has a message for those who may have shut off their gas during the Ridgecrest earthquakes. Don't try to turn it back on. House fires from ruptured lines are always among the biggest concerns following an earthquake. So PG&E says instead of trying to turn on the gas, call the utility to have workers perform a safety inspection before gas service is restored and before appliance pilots are lit. And to do that, call PG&E's customer service line at 1-800-743-5000. And just a reminder, the city of Ridgecrest has established a new hotline for residents to call to report damage. Kern County building inspectors are helping to staff that line. The new number is 760-499-5083. The sheriff's office says to call this number and do not call 911.
This morning, a man convicted of killing a woman in the 1970s is set to learn just how long he'll spend behind bars. Last month, a jury found 62-year-old Prentice Foreman guilty of first-degree murder in the 1979 cold case of Don Coons. Police arrested Foreman 2 years ago after detectives matched his DNA to evidence recovered from the crime scene 4 decades ago. He's due in court this morning for sentencing. Foreman faces 25 years to life in prison.
An investigation is underway after a gruesome discovery in central Bakersfield. The body was discovered yesterday afternoon in a canal across from the Bakersfield Corporation yard on Truxton Avenue. Bakersfield police are investigating. There aren't many details about how the person died or if foul play is suspected, but Bakersfield Fire Battalion Chief Casey Snow says it is obvious the body was in the canal for some time. We'll continue to follow this story and bring you updates as soon as we learn more.
5:09 now, new this morning. Bakersfield police were again once out in force, cracking down on people driving under the influence. Last night, the department held a DUI and driver's license checkpoint on Truxton Avenue between the Beale Street Library and Union Avenue. Officers screened nearly 650 cars and arrested 2 people for driving under the influence of alcohol. BPD also says 20 people were cited for driving without licenses and 14 others more were cited for driving on suspended licenses. Officers also arrested one other person who had an outstanding felony warrant.
Welcome back. It is 5:20 now, and measles have officially made its way to Kern County. Health officials are now warning about an exposure at a Bakersfield hotel. This is the Doubletree Hotel on Camino del Rio Court. That's where Kern County Public Health says a person diagnosed with measles stayed overnight Thursday and Friday. Measles are highly contagious, and the disease can stay airborne up to an hour after an infected person coughs or sneezes. Public Health says there are no confirmed local cases and no ongoing risk. to you. But you are being asked to watch out for symptoms until July 26th. They can include a high fever, cough, runny nose, red eyes, and a rash. And if you have questions, you can call Public Health at 321-3000.
521 now, it's a medical miracle. Doctors in Cleveland are celebrating a big step in modern medicine that could bring new hope to women struggling to conceive children. As NBC's Kristen Dahlgren explains, for the first time in the United States, a woman gave birth after receiving a uterus transplant from a deceased donor.
The first baby in America and only the second worldwide ever delivered from a uterus transplanted from a deceased donor.
It went very well, and it was not as complex as we anticipated, which is obviously something that you always hope.
In June, a team of doctors at the Cleveland Clinic delivered the little girl to a mother in her mid-30s who had been born without a uterus. Her transplant in 2017 was part of an ongoing clinical trial. The baby conceived in 2018 through IVF.
I'm quite confident that over time that we will have come up with technical improvements that will make this more widespread.
Since the trial began, doctors have completed 5 uterus transplants. 3 have been successful, including this one and 2 others, now awaiting embryo transfer.
I think it's important that these women have options.
Those mothers-to-be have new hope in this little girl some thought they would never see. Kristen Dahlgren, NBC News.
525 now, it's the end of the road for a vehicle that symbolized many things for more than 8 decades. Today, Volkswagen's halting production on the last version of its Beetle model at its plant in Puebla, Mexico, marking the end of an era. The VW factory in Puebla had long been the only plant in the world still manufacturing classic Beetles, and more recently became the only one left making modern ones. But people in the outskirts of Mexico City still rely on the original no-frills version, praising it for its affordability, repairability, and most of all, its dexterity at handling the district's steep streets. Their older model of the cars are often used as informal taxis in a place that lacks public transportation. Teens will be responsible for about $75 billion of discretionary spending this year. That's according to a new study by Piper Jaffray. And a lot of that money is being charged on credit cards. Money reporter Stacey Johnson explains a few things you might want to consider before you put plastic in the hands of your teenager.
So I guess you need to know the value of money, what money means to your family, and how you spend your money. And I think once you have that control, that self-control, then you can have a credit card.
18-year-old Alex Gobin carries his own credit card. It's something his parents encourage.
It does give you a life lesson, because if you abuse it, it's a very painful lesson. And if you manage it, it can be a useful tool.
But credit is a tool that needs practice to perfect. So if you're thinking about preparing your teens for plastic, here's how to go about it step by step. Start with a credit version of a learner's permit, a prepaid card. That gives them the plastic experience with no credit risk. Next step, a checking account followed by a debit card. When it's time for a credit card, make them an authorized user on your card. You can do this before they're 18. If you've got good credit, this could help theirs. But remember, you're fully liable for their charges. Now, after they turn 18, they can get their own plastic. You can co-sign or become a joint applicant with them on a card. Potential problem, if they pay late, your credit will suffer. Another option is a secured credit card. When that credit starts accumulating, don't forget this step. Show them how to track their credit history by pulling a free report at annualcreditreport.com. Bottom line, helping your kids build credit. Super idea. Just remember, some of the techniques could put your credit at risk, so be careful. Want more information and links? I've got them waiting for you at MoneyTalksNews.com. Just do a search for credit. For Money Talks News, I'm Stacey Johnson.
Money Talks is brought to you by your local consumer credit counseling service. If you've got debt problems or just want some free budget counseling, call today.